Good evening. My name is Jevon Carpenter, and I'm here today to present a presentation on the Great Recession of 2008 and 2009, causes and responses. I'm a MBA student in the University of Arizona Global Campus. This is for BUS 626, Global Economics and Political Influence, for Professor Marlo Chavaria. Today is July 26, 2021. To begin, what is the Great Recession? The Great Recession of 2008-2009 was a life-changing event for many who learned harsh lessons about how the economy can have a significant impact on individual employment and finances. Essentially, this event can be summarized as a drastic decline in economic growth for a period of time. But what caused it, and how did it end? These are questions economists around the world were asking themselves in the late 2000s. Here on this next slide, we'll start to address some of the causes. Although 2008 is often referred to as the beginning of the recession, economists were able to pinpoint signs of an impending recession all the way back in 2006. The most highlighted event of 2006 is the subprime mortgage crisis, which resulted from an increase in banks investing in derivatives that led to interest-only loans being available to borrowers with subpar credit histories. Borrowers began to default on their loans as the federal government began increasing interest rates. This compromised the value of derivative investments that were held by banks and hedge funds. Additionally, the stock market crashed in 2008 and unemployment rates reached 10% by 2009. Here I will discuss some of the solutions and some of the steps that were taken by the U.S. government to recover from the Great Recession. The United States federal government was forced into action in order to prevent the Great Recession from becoming a worldwide depression. However, this was not a simple task and required precise decision-making through the implementation of various monetary and fiscal policies, such as the following. In particular, TARP, also known as the Troubled Asset Relief Program, was implemented and designed to bail out troubled banks by providing funds to purchase their equity. Furthermore, the ARRA, or the American Recovery Reinvestment Act, was implemented to stimulate the economy by recovering and adding new jobs. This was meant to assist those who were severely impacted by the recession through the use of government funds. Next, we have the Economic Stimulus Plan, which was a fiscal policy used to reduce taxes for lower and middle-class Americans. The plan offered a $600 rebate for eligible recipients. Since 2008 and 2009, there's always been a fear of another recession happening again. But the Great Recession of 2008-2009 was primarily a result of the housing market's crash. Although today's market is experiencing challenges of its own, they are much different than those found in the early 2000s. Housing prices are currently on the rise as interest rates have reached an all-time low. The government's responses to the COVID-19 pandemic have stimulated the economy and sparked slight inflation. The stimulation significantly reduces the possibility of an event similar to the Great Recession reoccurring anytime soon. Here we have a few charts that highlight various moments in the past few decades when the United States has experienced economic crises. In particular, the charts identify the Great Recession of 2008 and 2009, as well as the energy crisis in the early 2000s, along with others. Data can be manipulative at times, but it seems each of the three charts may have the potential to pinpoint impending economic events. Since Claudius Salm is a well-known economist at the Federal Reserve, it seems that Salm's unemployment index may be the most useful of the three. If we look closely here, we can see her chart is at the top. And in 2008-2009 range, you see an extreme peak in unemployment, which highlights the recession that occurred. Following the Great Recession, many lasting effects remained. Unemployment rates were at an all-time high, at least for that decade. Interest rates were still very high. This was also a cause for the recession itself. Homeowner rates were at an all-time low. Many individuals were losing their homes. Homeless rates began to rise. Mortality rates began to rise as well, just due to stress, high stress levels, increasing health issues, and different things that really had a traumatic effect on the American people. Moving forward, we must gain a sound understanding of how our actions can be used to prevent recessions in the future. During George W. Bush's presidency, the U.S. government began intervening to save companies who otherwise would have gone out of business due to bad decisions. Policymakers must be conscious of the influence their decisions can have on market conditions. This is evident in President Bush's and later on Barack Obama's decisions where they failed to allow the market to naturally correct for errors. With that being said, one of the first actions to avoid a recession is sometimes inaction. Next, we have monetary policy. Monetary policy is key for recession prevention. Similar to what the United States government did to recover from the Great Recession, decision makers can take action by introducing bank reserves to stabilize the financial system, extend the supply of money, and sustain low interest rates. The third preventative action we have is fiscal policy. Fiscal policy can be used to control economic growth or reduction through government laws and regulations. This requires policymakers to be in tune with the economy to allow for the most effective decisions, such as tax cuts or funding in certain areas that can avoid the potential of another recession. It seems the government could have prevented the Great Recession by simply placing stricter regulations on mortgage brokers back in 2006. I'll begin to conclude the presentation here with a little bit of economic advice. Economic advice is critical coming out of the Great Recession, and just having a sound understanding of how we can use our decisions and our actions to avoid certain events such as that. Past mistakes are critical observation of past mistakes, and failure to implement preventative actions such as fiscal policies that could have prevented the Great Recession. George Bush and Barack Obama's decisions to intervene into the markets are also good examples of how past mistakes led to the Great Recession. It's important also for us to study trends, whether that's unemployment trends, interest rates. We can even include the housing market and stock market in this section, where we're observing different effects that these markets or these events, interest rates, unemployment rates, whatever they may be, how they affect the economy and where our economy is headed based on these occurrences. We must also study the effectiveness of our fiscal and monetary policies, just to make sure that they are doing their job, to make sure that the economy is responding how it should be based upon these policies, and just to assure that each of these policies is effective in preventing us from going into another recession. Thank you for taking the time to listen to this presentation. I hope this benefited you and that you were able to gain some additional knowledge on the Great Recession and how we can prevent such an event from occurring in our future. If you have any questions, feel free to ask now. Thank you.